So we have another Qbounti question. This one is actually about how well Tulsi is or is not doing with the Black and Latino vote. Let's talk about it. So we have a question from Qbounti, and of course, as most of you all know by now, if you have a question that you want to ask me, you can go to qbounti.com, qbounti.com/Niko, and you can pay $4, $5, whatever, and I will do a video responding to your question. That is, once again, qbounti.com/Niko, or you can actually go to the link in the description below. So this question is actually surprising, but not because of the question, but because it took a long time for somebody to actually ask this question in the form of a Qbounti or a super chat. And I'm kind of surprised by that. But I guess it's because of the type of supporters Tulsi has. So this question is, how well is Tulsi doing among Black and Latino voters? Now, I want to be straight up. I can't give you a quantitative answer. And the reason why is because generally speaking, they don't really even try and include Tulsi in these type of polls. But I'll tell you this, it's likely for the same reason that they don't include Tulsi in head-to-head polls when it comes to Donald Trump. And that's because if you go to South Carolina or if you go to Illinois, right, she's spent a significant amount of time there. If you go to a lot of these places and ask the Black and Latino voters how they view Tulsi Gabbard, you would be pleasantly surprised or unpleasantly surprised if you're the establishment. Now, why do I say that? Well, Tulsi has actually spent a significant amount of time genuinely bonding with the Black community. And I know some people might think that's actually surprising or weird, but if you actually know the history of relationships between Polynesians, specifically the Samoan community, and the Black community, it's almost like a hand in glove fit. Even I was in the military, in case most of you all don't know, which I assume a lot of you all know by now. But yes, I'm a veteran. One of the quickest ways to get off of the island of Samoa is to join the military, and because of their culture, right? It's a very, I don't know how to explain it, grandiose, right? Big personalities, even bigger people, same athletic interests. Like football is a big thing in Samoan culture. It's just obviously a big thing in the Black community as well. For every Black wide receiver or running back, you're going to see a Samoan lineman protecting them. Like it's a, so the dancing and it's just two cultures that really get along very well. And so whenever she goes to these communities, it's not like she's campaigning. They invite her to barbecues. She hung out with Reverend Jesse Jackson in Chicago, DJ Jazzy Jeff. Was it DJ Jazzy Jeff? I want to say it was DJ Jazzy Jeff in Chicago as well. I think. Don't quote me on that. But it was actually a DJ, very famous DJ, DJ Dougie Fresh. That's who it was. And literally at the event, he saw Tulsi from across the the barbecue and was like, "Oh my God, that is the finest presidential candidate I have ever seen before in my life." But so this is like she's been actually campaigning with the Black community, but they actually, it's because they mostly invite her, and she always accepts an invitation like she does to any community. Now it's not like she's going to these Black communities, by the way, with nothing to discuss, because at the end of the day, there are Black issues that are very important to the Black community. For example, criminal justice reform. It needs to be understood that Tulsi Gabbard is the first person that came out and said straight up, if one of the first things she would do is completely and totally ban private prisons, get rid of them 100%. First person. And that's a big deal to the Black community because we all know who gets thrown in those private prisons. Now, she also said, first person to say this, and this once again is extremely important to understand, the first person to say this, and to my knowledge, she's still the only person. She said she would completely get rid of the 1994 crime bill, which once again, if you understand its implications, you know that bill was meant to target the Black community specifically. But it should also be understood that she was the first person in this race that's sitting in the legislature, right? Marianne Williamson obviously came out for reparations too, but I mean in the legislature with the ability to get this done. She co-sponsored legislation to start a committee to start figuring out how to pay out reparations. In other words, Tulsi Gabbard supports reparations. I know, gasp. Some people are like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Yeah, I know. Can you believe it? She actually supports, she's consistent ideologically. She believes if there's a debt to be paid, then it should be paid. It is what it is. That's great. It means she actually understands the history of the issue rather than pandering, which once again is hilarious that people think that Tulsi panders to the right, because she does a lot and says a lot that pisses off the right. And my friend Lee says, he's like, but she just has such she has such testicular fortitude. She has so much principle, right? That it's hard to be mad at her even when she takes a quote unquote leftist stand. And she actually refused to pander on reparations. She still does the work behind the scenes, but she's not going to pander about it because she feels like it's the right thing to do. Not because it's the black community and she needs the black vote, but because if you asked her about Native American reparations, she would tell you the same thing. It's the right thing to do. When you want to look at criminal justice reform overall, she has one of the best criminal justice reform histories. And this is something, once again, that does affect the black community significantly. Marijuana prohibition, she actually introduced legislation not only in 2019, but in 2018, 2017. She was the author of the legislation to completely and totally legalize marijuana and also ensure that in that transition, that the people who are affected by the federal prohibition of marijuana, which once again, dominantly us, will be the first ones to benefit from its federal legalization. That is huge. That's huge. That's huge for us. I mean, for the black community. Because once again, if you understand the history of marijuana and hemp prohibition, you would know that a lot of that was directed at the black community. I know. Surprise, surprise. So overall, I think that she'll do very well in the black community. I think that's why they're not polling and asking about how Tulsi's doing in the black community in states like South Carolina. South Carolina is going to be a very surprising state. Bet on that. South Carolina is going to be a surprising state for a lot of people. Y'all going to be caught completely off guard by a lot of things that happen there. I think that Bernie's going to win. I think that Tulsi's going to come in second and third place. I don't think that Biden is going to do as well as he thinks he is. And to be honest with you, people have seemingly only gone back to South Carolina to try and win the black vote. The only ones who have spent a significant amount of time there overall has been Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders, not just quote unquote pandering for the black vote, but actually going after the voters in an open primary state where once again, conservatives will be a deciding factor in the victor there. So talking about the Latin vote, once again, there's no solid quantitative numbers to show how well she's doing amongst Latin voters. But I can talk about the policies that I know for a fact Latin voters that I know support her because of, right? So we'll got to look at her just total immigration policy. Not only does, she visited the detention center here in Homestead, Florida, which is in Miami. And I was surprised at just how hard it hit her. It was pretty bad. Like she had me choking up a little bit. But she was very clear. Like, it's not just about, like, this is like the private prison system. And we know who it's targeting. Just like the private prison system targets people who look like me. The private detention system for immigration, they target Latinos. And she talks about, so you have to address the private detention system, but you also have to address the root cause, which is the military industrial complex and American imperialism. And if you're from these nations, those words ring true. And oftentimes I had one person say to me, you know what? I never really realized how much I was settling when it came to immigration from the left, when it came to their stances. They said, and I ain't gonna say their name because they were voting for Bernie. They still like Bernie, but they decided to vote for Tulsi. So I'm just wanted to give you all an explanation as to why Latin voters gravitate towards Tulsi when they know about her platform. She said that she was settling for a certain immigration platform from the left because she thought that was the best that anyone was going to offer. But Tulsi came through and said, we have to address the military industrial complex. And when she gets on when she starts going down that rabbit hole, she starts breaking down how our intervention here leads to this outcome here, which leads to immigration into our country, which causes the immigration issue, which is then used politically, but then there's no solutions actually offered. So if you take care of the military side and the imperialism side, then many people aren't forced to leave their countries and their cultures, and a lot of people don't want to do that anyway. Copernicus Thinker, thanks for the super chat. Tulsi, please tell TYT's Anna and Emma you plan to subpoena them in your lawsuit against Hillary. Put the fear of God into those witches before they dare smear Tulsi further. Unfortunately, in the media, you get a little bit more leeway when it comes to smearing people. I know, it sucks, but it's the reality. But, yeah. So just really being a straight shooter is largely how Tulsi has, called the Black and Latino votes that she has got up until this point. And there are a lot more than you would think. I found out in the weirdest of ways, planning an event for Tulsi here in Miami when she came to visit, that Miami's probably one of her most popular cities in the country. Would have never guessed it. But I also found out it's because people they feel like they're being attacked for liking her. The news, the average Democrats, they make it like it's taboo to say out loud that you love Tulsi Gabbard and her policies. During the debates, people all over Brickell, which is downtown Miami, were walking past me. Hey man, is that a Tulsi Gabbard shirt? Is she gonna be here? Can I meet her? Duh, I'm voting for her. I'm definitely voting for her. I'm like, why are you whispering? And this was a regular thing. Me and one of her volunteer coordinators, Yvette, were like, why is everybody whispering this? 5, 6 people walk by. Oh man, Tulsi? Bro. Tulsi she's a boss, bro. Definitely voting for her. What? So yeah, that's how well she's doing. And for me, like I said, I knew that she wasn't, her positions are interesting when it comes to this type of issue, right? Racism, you can't ignore it. You can't pretend like it doesn't exist, but Tulsi doesn't pander. She doesn't play identity politics at all. She acknowledges plight, but she does not play into the desperation of a particular marginalized group. Instead, she offers very specific solutions. And she's like, this is just a sensible thing to do. It isn't, which is like, it depends on who you are. If sometimes people don't like that. Sometimes people want to be pandered to. It is what it is. I don't like being pandered to. I like having solutions offered to me. Copernicus Thinker. Niko, Tulsi polling within the margin of error with Warren in New Hampshire. I bet she slightly beats Warren there, which would be a watershed moment. Agree? I don't think she'll slightly beat Warren there. I think she's going to dismantle Warren there. I think that Bernie and Tulsi have New Hampshire sold up. It's important to remember that a lot of these New Hampshire polls are likely Democratic primary voters. The other day, Tulsi Gabbard was doing a town hall event where Vrindavon, her younger sister, also like her de facto campaign manager, recorded where they raised their hand. Who's conservative? A third of the room is conservative. They're voting in that primary. Do you think that they were called? Who's independent? Another third of that room is independent. They're voting in that primary. Do you think these people were polled? Do you think their family members were polled? No. And yeah, the rest of them were Democrats. But who knows? Maybe they hadn't participated. Maybe maybe they don't get that call. But oftentimes, non-party preference voters don't get called, just like non-party preference voters. And I know this, by the way, from literally canvassing for local politicians. When you're doing when you're cutting out your turf and figuring out what doors you're going to knock on, most often you're not knocking on non-party preference voters' doors just because a lot of the times you just don't get their information. Sometimes it's on purpose because people get cocky. Other times you just literally don't have their information. It is what it is. So when you're looking at the greater picture, though, as far as identity politics is concerned, Tulsi talks about, it's weird because she offers policies very specific to identity, but she doesn't pander to identity politics. When she I'm sure she won't mind me talking about this. She actually reached out to me when she co-sponsored HR 40 because she wanted to make sure that they were getting it right, and that she understood, the gravity of reparations and what it should look like in the long run. I know I hear this weird thing going around, and by the way, and this isn't to insult anybody, because I know that there are people actually doing it from a good place, because black people have gotten the shaft from the Democrats so many times before, so I understand it. But yes, HR 40 is a resolution. It is a resolution to establish a committee to study reparations to ultimately distribute them. Yes, it is a resolution to establish a committee. I need for you to understand something. Before any amount of money is ever handed off for anything, before any major arm of the government is created, there is a committee established in order to get that policy or branch established, and then make those payments or hire those people or do whatever. For example, with Medicare for All started out as a caucus/committee, and in the House, like recently, Jayapal was like the head of it. So before that translated into tangible legislation, a bill with a payment mechanism, with rules, with departments and things like that. First, it starts off as a committee. You're not getting the Medicare for All without a committee first. So if you want reparations, you better be happy that Conyers introduced a committee, because that's your first step, no matter how bad you want reparations. You don't just skip steps in the government, especially if you're doing something good for the people. They're going to make you go through the grinder for it. So I think that it's important to help people understand. HR 40 is a step in the right direction. It is not by any means the last step, but it also makes it pretty clear in the legislation is not the last step. All right? But I have confirmation that Tulsi does, in fact, support cash payment reparations to black people. Some people don't like it. Black people do like it. And when she talks about it, I'm sure she wins people over instantaneously. So I appreciate that super chat or that Qbounti question, because it's just weird that I haven't gotten it before, but it's been something that I've actually been meaning to discuss. But the opportunity never comes up, because literally there's zero polls talking about it in reference to Tulsi. Because once again, my theory is such that for the same reason they never do head-to-head polls. Why do you think they never do head-to-head polls with Tulsi and Donald Trump? Do you think people really want to see the truth? Do you think they're ready for that? They're not, because Tulsi is the best candidate to beat Donald Trump. And they actually, once again, BuzzFeed was making fun of Tulsi Gabbard because she was the best. They were literally like, ha ha, she's not even a real Democrat. 21% of Trump voters said that they would vote for Tulsi over Trump. She's such a conservative. What? I thought that was the goal, right? To win back those independents and Democrats. A lot of them, former Bernie supporters, by the way. 1 in 10. And that's like from the people that were polled. I'm pretty sure it was more than that. 1 in 10 Bernie supporters supported Donald Trump. A lot of it was exclusively because of trade deals, disastrous trade legislation, NAFTA, etc. The same reason that they were in the Bernie camp to begin with. If you can win those voters back, you beat Trump. And a lot of those voters ain't voting for a run-of-the-mill Democrat, I can tell you that. Black people also want somebody that they feel is going to fight for them rather than pay lip service. And it's going to take a while to convince any black person to vote, wholeheartedly for any Democratic candidate. And that includes Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. And there's a reason for that. There is a reason for that. We have a built-up level of distrust because we've been used in the Democratic primary, only to be ignored very shortly after the election. Now, the Republicans don't even try. I will say, though, Trump, weirdly enough, went to a black church on national television and said, Cops who murder black people, they absolutely should be prosecuted. Which I know is like, duh, what? Of course. Doesn't everybody say that? No. That's why it was like, it kind of caught me way off guard when he said it. He literally said that cops who commit murders, like what we've seen in the past, should absolutely be prosecuted. So he actually went after the black vote pretty significantly in the general election, more than what people think. That's why it was kind of hard to convince like your average black voter, not one of those people who are hyper political, but the average black voter, they weren't getting like hyper emotional about Trump because Trump was trashing Muslims. Trump was trashing Latino immigrants. Trump was trashing women. Trump was trashing Democrats. He was not trashing black people in the general. He wasn't. That was by design. He hedged his bets on that one. But we've obviously built up a level of distrust, and that's rightfully so. So no matter who you are, Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders, anybody, you got to win the black vote. You got to earn that. And that is up until and after the vote has been casted. Because you need black people to also fight for you if you want to get anything done in the deepest of red states, like Georgia, like Texas, like South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland. Like these states where you will have the most influence is where the black people dominate the region. So you will still need black people after that. So don't just pander, because black people got a long memory now. We ain't getting Obama again, bro. It ain't happening. So appreciate you all sticking around. Thank you very much for that Qbounti. If you have a Qbounti question that you want me to make a video about, go to Qbounti.com, Qbounti.com/Niko, or just go to the link in the description below. I want to give really quick a shout out to Tulsi. Go donate to her right now. She has a goal of $1.5 million that she is trying to hit right now. I think she's literally halfway there. She's at about 700,000 roughly. So she's trying to hit 1.5 million. I think before Iowa. I think it's before Iowa. She's trying to hit it. So if you help her, you get a chance to win a ski trip with Tulsi. And so that link is also in my description. Donate whatever you can. $5, $10. I promise you. I ain't gonna say you won't miss it, but it'll be money well spent, right? Tulsi has been very frugal, very smart with her money. There's a reason she's doing much better in the polls. There's a reason that they're trying to keep her down. There's a reason that Cory Booker is out. He was a grassroots candidate, didn't last, even with all the establishment backing him. Julian Castro, out. Grassroots candidate, didn't last, even with all the establishment backing him. She's doing the right things with her money, spending it in the right ways, and you don't last this long without making, she's making an impact. Every dollar she gets is making an impact. So every dollar you donate can significantly change the outcome and the trajectory of this election for Tulsi Gabbard if you are a Tulsi Gabbard supporter. If you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, Bernie's doing very well right now, and that's great for him, but you don't want Bernie Sanders on an island against the entire establishment. If Tulsi doesn't make it to the convention, that's what you're doing to Bernie Sanders. It makes it easier to rig. You have to be realistic here. There's a reason that they haven't pulled out these. Warren basically tanked her chances. Why is she still in the race? We know that she's gunning for a VP spot. Why is she still in the race? We know that Pete Buttigieg is just mad ambitious. But there's a reason that these establishment candidates are still in the race. Okay? Even Klobuchar. There's a reason that they're still in the race. Because it doesn't matter who they endorse. Their endorsement is worthless without the delegates attached to them, so that they can put whoever they need to over the hump, so that it either has to go to a second round or they get that 51%, so it doesn't have to go to a second round. You don't want Bernie Sanders on an island when that time comes. So be mindful of that. You might want to make sure you have an ally in this race, a proven ally. You never have to question where Tulsi's loyalties is. Tulsi's loyalties to the movement. And that the face of the movement may change, but her principles in that regard clearly do not. All right. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into that live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. And always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell if you like that segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Of course, if YouTube is giving you trouble, as it always does, you can download the Rockfin app and follow us there. Also, if you want to continue to help our show grow, you can help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon and donate as little as $1. Really, anything helps. Other than that, always remember, people, more than anything else, find your balance.